So, very, very welcome to the first episode of Yes, I Can, the Actors Podcast. And I have an amazing guest with me today. Robert Eades is with me today. Hi,
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm in sunny London, which is a rare sentence, so I can't complain.
I have chosen you as my first guest because I have just found you on Instagram and I see how much initiative you have and how much you create yourself and how full of like life and ideas and creation you are. So to start with, Robert, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Just like thinking the audience doesn't know you yet, and of course, like we can get that you're an actor, but maybe about a little bit about your journey, about who you are, what defines you. We would love to know that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from just outside of London in the UK. I went to school just outside London, and I've been acting since I was about 13 or 14. In the very early days, I literally used to go to a class once a week in London, and then when I was probably 14, I picked up an agent through that, did some commercials and things like that, and then I did a little series for CBBC, which is like a children's BBC over here in the UK,
Yeah.
when I was 16 or 17, which is just before I was doing my A levels, which are like the final exams at school over here. Um, so I did that part. It went really well. And then I took a year out after school, and then I went to university and did a business degree. So I took a step
Mm.
out from acting, really. Probably on reflection, not at the best time because the career was going all right. But I went and did a business degree. I didn't really act at all when I was at uni. I was doing a few auditions, but it was very much I was sort of in that university bubble. I was playing a lot of sport. I was working hard on my degree. So I finished that. And at the time, I had a marketing agency that I'd started with a friend at university. So left university, I was still running that, and I was due to start in a grad job, which is, a lot of companies you join and they have a sort of 2, 3 year program that you build into the company, learn about your role
Yeah.
in banking of all things. And then I was actually away with a few friends over that summer, and they were talking about how excited they were to start their jobs. And I remember thinking, I starting that job is literally the last thing I want to do. So I decided to go to drama school instead after my proper degree. And the way it works here in the UK is you can get a student loan to do one degree, but you can't get another student loan to do another degree.
Yes.
So I was in a bit of a kind of interesting position, and I knew I'd have to fund my own training. So I trained at a place called the Poor School in King's Cross, which is all evenings and weekends, but it's still full time. So it meant I could still run my business during the day with my co-founder, who was a friend of mine, and kind of pay my way through that, which worked really well. I had an amazing time. It was very intense. But
Mm.
I came out the back of it definitely feeling like I was a much more well-rounded actor, especially with stage stuff. It was a sort of classical training. So I finished that. I was with the same agent at the time as I'd had before. And I sort of said to myself, I'll give it 6 months and see what happens.
Yeah.
And the answer was not much. So then I was lucky enough, a friend of mine was with an agency called McFarlane Shard, which I moved to.
Mhm.
Um, and again, it was still pretty quiet for a while. And then I picked up a couple of roles. I did one in a series called The Larkins, which is on ITV over here, one of the big sort of national networks. And then
Yeah.
I think I did Ted Lasso shortly after that. And sort of going along at the same time, which I suppose is quite relevant to this podcast, I'd also started doing content on Instagram.
Yes.
Um,
And you know what I
so
love? You call yourself attention seeker. And I love that because you just put it out there. You're not ashamed about it. You're not like, it's not something, but you're like, I feel like a very playful way you like, you have with yourself, where you don't take
yeah,
yourself too serious, which is an amazing quality to have as an
thank you.
actor to come far in life, I think. So talk a little bit about this attention seeker like thing about Instagram, making content. And then also maybe if you want, let us know how did you get to this like playful way of approaching life?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Well, I mean, I used to get in trouble at school all the time for being an attention seeker, and being loud and, wanting to entertain people, wanting to be funny.
Yeah,
And obviously, as a performer, that's kind of the heart and soul of what we do. I think people are also different. A lot of performers are more kind of reserved, and then when they're on stage or when they're in front of a camera, they kind
very
of come
true.
out. I'm very much sort of, I'm quite loud. I love making people laugh. I love entertaining people. So I thought, why not turn what's always been something that's been, I suppose, held against me a bit at school. And to be fair, it doesn't work very well for a school setting if you're loud and boisterous. But, now as an adult, it's definitely a strength of mine. So I thought, why not, why not include that in my bio? Um, and yeah, funnily enough, I started doing the Instagram stuff at the time. It was all food. So long story short, I learned to cook during my year out. And so I thought, I'm cooking all the time. I might as well post recipes and see if anything happens with it. And my main thing was basically doing like really affordable but good, healthy food. And that's how my Instagram kind of started to grow. Um, and then I started working with brands. I actually did a BBC cookery show somehow, and I was very out of my
No
depth, but I
way.
just
That
I
is
just
so
said yes.
cool.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was really cool. And to be fair, it was a really good example of, I've always been someone that just says yes. If there's an exciting opportunity, I'll say yes and then worry about making it work afterwards, which I
Okay.
think is,
I'm just
yeah,
gonna I'm just gonna freeze that because
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
want to learn from you, you know? So while you know your systems and the way you work, I'm just gonna freeze and say you always say yes to opportunities. So
yeah. If it's something that sounds like it's exciting, and
okay. Yeah.
I think I think some things are scary because there's no way I can do it. And some things are scary because
Yeah.
it's a big challenge, and that's quite a difficult balance to get. But I also feel like most things, if you focus your energy and you work hard, you'll be able to do quite well at it.
Okay, let's
Um,
repeat that. I think that's genius. So most things, if we focus our energy and if we work hard, then we can achieve them. Tell us more about how you do that. How do you focus your energy? So, because I think, many people, I teach acting also, and it's also a lot about focus, in the small things, in the doings. And it's
mm,
also a lot about focus. And many people have trouble to focus,
mm.
to,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like zoom in, zoom out, or to obviously cut out some things of their life or whatever it is.
yeah. Well, I mean, I've got ADHD, so I think at school I found ways to kind of cope with that. I exercise a lot, which helps me to kind of feel a bit more balanced.
Yeah.
And as a result, I've really had to make sure that if I'm doing something, I have to be completely focused on it. Otherwise, I'll get distracted so easily. So in a way, that what is a potential negative, I've tried to sort of flip and work out how can I use that to my advantage.
This is
And
an
as a
amazing
result,
question with everything. So I love how you approach things like that. Like when you get diagnosed with ADHD, I guess there would be many people say like, oh, it's going to be a deficit in your life, or it's going to, like it's something. And then you're just like, how can I use that as my benefit? How can I get the best out of this and make this even a plus? Like you don't go as far as saying, how can I make it work? But you're going in the other direction, being like, how can I make this something amazing?
yeah,
Which is
yeah, definitely,
brilliant. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, you know, I hmm, I don't really know necessarily why. I mean, part of that story as well is I didn't get diagnosed with ADHD until about 2 years ago. So I
yeah,
think I'm quite competitive, and I've got a lot of sort of close friends. So I think at school I was always very competitive, and that kind of drove me to be like, work harder if I needed to do as well as everyone
hmm,
else or better than everyone else. Um, and yeah, I think now my outlook on pretty much everything is, if it doesn't go the way that I'd sort of hoped it might go, whatever it may be, there's
yeah,
always something positive you can find in whatever that may be. I mean, a good sort of acting related example, I spent the last month auditioning for a West End show, and I was obviously super excited about it. Got to the
yeah.
final round, met all the producers, all the directors, literally everyone
Oh,
important that was related to it. and I
Shoot.
didn't get it. And the reason I
Oh
didn't
my
get it,
God. Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
disappointing. But and you know, for the first couple of days, absolutely, I was really gutted about it. But the reason I didn't get it, because after some feedback, was just because I read too old for the part, and I knew from the first round, I feel like I'm probably a little bit old for this part. But let's just see, see what can happen. And
Yeah.
if I reflect and analyze on that now, despite me thinking I probably am going to be reading a bit old, they still put me through, got through to the last round. And then eventually they were like, to be honest, you do read a bit old. But for them to keep putting me through despite that originally
Yes.
means I can take away from it, well, clearly I impressed. I did a really good job and something else will come up where I'm a good fit. So this was just a chance for me to audition in front of important, influential and exciting directors and show them what I'm capable of doing rather than being like, for goodness sake, this is hopeless. I can't believe I didn't get it. What am I going to do?
Yes, I love it. And now they do know you now. They've spent time with you, they worked with you. And
Yeah,
I always say that it's also so much like acting related jobs. It's also about the way you show up. You're on
yeah,
time, you're good to work with, you're flexible, you can take feedback. All these things that they know about you now, even though they haven't like chosen you for the final role, right? So they're like,
yeah,
he's a good actor. I know that because I made him come to the final round, but he also has all these other attributes. So
yeah,
it's a great way to show like who you are.
yeah, and what you could do. I try and live by whenever I get an audition for anything, it's a
Yes,
chance for me to show that casting director what I can do. I don't try and look at it like I'm auditioning for this role. I look at it like I'm auditioning for whoever's going to see this tape.
I love that. I love
Mm.
that. Yeah. So okay, I want to ask you so many questions, but how
Yeah,
much
okay.
time do you take? I know sometimes it's very last minute with self tapes. It can be the one or the other. It can be like you got a
Mhm.
month. I just got a month for a self tape. I was
Wow.
like so
I've
surprised
never
for
I've
feature
never had
film.
that long.
I was like,
Jealous.
Jesus, what am I going to do? I have 1 month to prepare for the role. It's like,
That's
and the
almost
other
too
time
much
I had
time.
like, yeah, I had like 2 days. So how do you prepare for a self tape? How do you squeeze the best out of it? I always have this picture of this wet towel, squeeze it all out, like all the possibilities and everything. So tell us a bit, maybe on one example or something, how you work with it.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, it definitely depends on the material. I had a tape the other day that was for a courtroom drama. So
Yeah.
a lot of the language is quite technical. There were case examples I needed to use. There was quite a long sort of monologue throughout it. So with that kind of thing, it's very much my focus has to be on learning it thoroughly and knowing what I'm talking about and understanding what I'm saying, and then trying my best to let that go. And then when I'm taping it, just make sure it feels natural and make sure I'm rooted with who I feel like the character is. And I also find it really helpful on those sort of ones that are like quite big, quite wordy, quite hard to do. I always try and read them with an actor that I respect and whose opinion
Mm.
I really appreciate. And
Why is
what that
that? Tell me why is that? An actor that you appreciate and that you respect. Tell me more about that. What
Yeah,
does
I
that
think
mean?
one element of it is that I know that they're going to give me something on the other side of that tape. So they're going to
Mm,
give you something about whoever the other character is, even if they don't know it very well, that helps me to guide the journey of that story or that scene.
mm,
And then
mm.
another element is that we can look through the tape and think about it together. And there may be, things that they think of that I hadn't even thought about to do with that character or a way that, why might that line be particularly important? Why might that line be a throwaway line? And it means that apart from anything else, I might do one option that's this is what I think this scene should be. And then I might do one option that's okay, a little bit more outside the
Oof,
box, not quite what
that
I
is
thought.
brilliant. I want
Yeah,
everyone to write this down. So one option where you think this is what the character will do, this is what, right, your vision, and then
yeah,
one of your respected and like well appreciated co-player that he says,
yeah,
hey, try that.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
something that you wouldn't have maybe come up with or thought about or right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That is
And then
brilliant. Honestly.
if yeah, and if I'm reading by myself, then I'll still try and do that in terms of I'll do one more tape that's a bit more kind of down the line of, this is what the description looks like. And I'll do one that's,
Yes.
how could I make this character a little bit different, a little bit more interesting, and someone that they won't be seeing tape after tape after tape.
Okay, this is brilliant again. again, so one very close to the script, right?
Mhm.
Everything, and one maybe a bit more creative, more edgy, more courageous, more brave, or more like daring to
Yeah,
go across that, or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And within that, I mean, I don't know how a casting director or a writer would respond, but I also will not worry too deeply about, what are the actual lines. If I know in detail what this scene's about, I will chuck things in, I will take little things out, and I'll make it feel as natural as I can to me. And that comes across. There's often you'll get in a scene little bits that I'll think that doesn't quite feel natural to me. So it
Yes.
might be I mean this is not the best example, but I struggle with saying clearly in an American accent. Clearly is really
Yes.
difficult to say. So I often will be like more clear, things
Yes.
like that. I mean,
It's a
that's not the best
small
example,
change. You
but
don't
just
use a
small little
different
things.
word. Yeah, it's just a
Exactly.
smaller change. And that I think is a very subtle thing to do, which can definitely be acknowledged by the director.
Mm,
I think
yeah.
because I'm a bit like when you go too far off the road, I'm sometimes a bit like, because I know some of my director friends, I asked one, what is your scale on shortlisting me? And he said one is
Interesting.
the lines, how
Interesting.
you say like if you say all the lines
Mm,
in the script.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I didn't
Really
know that.
interesting.
And he said like one is for him, one is look. So
Yeah.
he has the look, the age. One is performance. So that would be probably like, creative attempts on the role and like intensity whatsoever. And one is just text. It's just the lines. And I
Interesting.
didn't, because I was very much before also like very playful about it, like you. And
Yeah.
after I knew that, at least for that director, I like said every word, every line. Now
Perfectly.
I'm
Yeah.
excited what's gonna come out because I just sent it, but
Yeah,
um
yeah, yeah. I think that's also a really good point. Is it, you know, there is no perfect way of doing, well,
no, and
anything really,
everybody
but especially
expects
with
different
auditions.
things. Yeah,
Exactly. People expect different things. And the only thing that you can do is do things in a way that means you feel like you're giving your best performance. And
yes.
I suppose the flip side of that as well is knowing that they want you to get the role always. Like they want to find the
I
person
love
that they're
that.
like,
I
bang,
love that. They
that's
want you
them.
to get the role because that
Yeah,
already puts you in a position where I'm like, I'm invited, like they want me. So that question is
exactly.
also kind of scaled off. So you
Yeah,
don't have to worry about that. Am I the right
100%.
type? No, they chose me. They saw my headshot, they saw some showreel, they know that this is who I am, and they generally want me to succeed, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And and that kind of gives you a bit more freedom to then take ownership of it. I always try and if I'm in the room with the casting director, I will go into the room and do the scene as if I've been given the part and this is our first read through.
I love
Um,
that. That's so
yeah,
good. That's some
yeah,
great
because
mind work there. Yeah.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, they're looking for someone that will take ownership of that part. And to be honest, they're looking for someone that's going to get rid of their problem, which is
Yes.
finding the right actor for this part. So if you can go into a room, take ownership of it,
Yes, you're
and
right.
give your thoughts and think, I feel like that scene it might be funnier if we did this, or it might be a bit more hard hitting if we did this. Can we give that a try? People love that, and it's really hard to do, and you got to get to a point where I think you feel like you can, but if you take ownership of your role and you're actually bringing something way more than just, okay, here's a script, here's an actor, they're doing the
Yeah.
script,
Yeah.
like anyone can do that. But if you're someone that comes in and really puts your own spin on it and takes ownership of it, I think for a director it's exciting because they think, oh, this person can really bring this character to life. For the writer it's exciting, for the casting director, if it's
Yeah.
exciting for a writer and director, that's what they're looking for. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. I have two questions left.
Yeah.
And the first, I want to know what is your like big, 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 big dreams? Like, what is the things you're scaling for? What are your big goals? And you can say what is your goal like this year or within the next year? And like, what is the big goals ahead of you? Where do you see yourself? Give us some
Yeah.
perspective. Dreaming big. What is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. It's a really good question. It's something I think about quite a lot. I wouldn't say I'm someone that has decided, let's say, I want to do Shakespeare at the RSC. I'm someone that I've decided I want to act. I want to act full time and be comfortable doing that. as in financially comfortable doing that, that would be amazing. I'd be so happy just doing that. Um, and I'd love to do like superhero movies or things that involve a lot of physicality, action, as
Mm,
well as some depth to that character. Um, but I also, I've done quite a lot of comedy, which is not something that I kind of set out necessarily to do. Although, as a result of doing a bit of comedy, I then started doing a bit of stand up just to try and round myself and see how can I add to that skills basket. Um, and I've loved doing that, and I've loved doing drama, and I've loved doing theatre, and I'm definitely someone that doesn't like to do the same thing too often because I get quite bored doing it.
yeah,
Um, which means, I suppose, in terms of my sort of bigger goal and bigger visions, the only real big goal I have is to make enough of a name for myself doing TV and film to then be able to do a West End show or a Broadway show for a few months where I know that I'm going to get paid relatively well to do it. I'll be quite well looked after, and I'm going to be able to sell tickets for it based on, the my brand, I suppose, and Mike's kind of following. But other than that, I love the sort of excitement of this world of, one week you could be auditioning for a Shakespeare play, and the next week you could be auditioning for a comedy on Netflix, and they're
yeah.
such different skills, but it makes it so fun to just keep testing yourself and keep trying new things.
It's crazy. I just learned Spanish like some days ago for a role, and I got the
Oh
part
wow!
because
Oh,
it's
amazing!
a German
Congratulations!
woman speaking Spanish for like a TV drama in Spain,
Yeah,
and it worked. And I was like, "This." I actually hesitated to send a self because I was like, I don't know if my Spanish is good enough, but I gave my best in this short time that I had. And
yeah,
I got hooked. And it's crazy because I would have never thought of that I'm gonna play in Barcelona and like a part in a TV broadcast TV there. Like never.
yeah. And that's it. I think in a lot of industries, it's a lot more systematic in that,
Yes,
you work the right hours, you do the right things, you hit the right targets, you get promoted, blah 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 blah. That that
exactly.
that's not exciting to me. Um, so same as you, I've done acting jobs that I would never have even thought about being even like considered for,
Yeah,
and I've loved them, and that's the joy of it. And you never know what's going to come next. But I think so long as you're open to opportunities and you're willing to work hard enough when those opportunities come around, they say the more you practice, the luckier you get. And I think that rings true with our profession for sure. It's making sure that when those big opportunities come around or those exciting different opportunities come around, either you're ready for them when they come, or you're willing to put the work in over that week, 2 weeks, whatever
yes,
you have to prepare to be ready, or as ready as you can be when you get in the room or when you send off your
yeah.
self tape.
That's beautifully said. Thank you. So the last
Thank you.
question is a bit of a switch, but I
Yeah.
wanted to talk like shortly about it. And that is, I saw a post where you posted that you got sober. So you like
Yeah.
stopped drinking, and I also see you work out a lot, and there's a lot of health topics. And you said you cook, like how to cook healthy with not so much like money or something like that. But I just
Mhm.
wanted to talk with you about it because there is something that I'm also very concerned about in my practice, and that is about like the personal performance, right? On which level I perform every single day, how I stand up. You talked about it in the post, and you
Mm.
said something about like back in the days I was standing up and I didn't know, like and that your mindset is very different now. So just tell us maybe very shortly about that journey and what
Yeah.
it means for you, because I kind of want to, it's almost like I want to make it more attractive to be sober instead of the whole like drug culture around this like rock and roll profession, because
Yeah.
I think and I believe also as an acting coach that you can get way more far when you're healthy, because you can take so many opportunities, you can show up more, you can work harder. um, and you are for me, for example, one example for that,
Mm.
the way you live, like
Thank you.
you seem to live very healthy. But tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, to be honest, for me, it comes back to one sentence. What we're trying to do, the career we're trying to have, is very different, and it's very hard, and there's a lot of people trying to do it. And the way I look at it now is, if you want to be different, you have to be different. So what I mean by that is, if you want to do something that is not normal and goes against what the rest of society may be doing, you can't live in the same way as everyone else is or what you perceive to be normal.
Yes.
Um, and some people get away with it. Props to them, amazing. But I feel like, if I'm not at 100% and I'm competing against 5, 6 other people for a role who are all at 100%, then
Mm-hmm.
who's suffering in that? The only person that suffers is me. And, if I couldn't be more serious about this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I've put so much work in over the years already. And, I've got a lot of life left. I've probably got 50, 60 years that I could be acting for.
Yeah.
And unless I'm giving myself the best possible opportunity to perform at my best level, then I'm just shooting myself in the foot. So as soon as I've started living by that, it becomes a complete no-brainer to, not have really heavy weekends where I take one through on a Monday, it's due in on Tuesday. I know I don't look great. I know I don't feel great. I know my voice is off. You know, well, that's not good enough. It's just not good enough
No,
for
no.
where I want to be and what I want to do.
Is there someone you look up to, like one name that's your go-to person?
Um, Acting wise, I wouldn't say I have a specific person that is my sort of go-to. Funnily enough, I look for inspiration in people that are closer to me. You know, I'm very lucky. Both my parents I find incredibly motivating and inspirational, and they've also both afforded me the freedom to, not go and work in a bank. I said I want to be an actor. I don't want to do that, and they were like, "Great, go for it. We're not going to pay for it, but we support you every step of the way," which is amazing. And then
Yeah.
I've got some really really close friends. A guy called Dr. Arya Campbell Dinesh, who is he's a high performance psychologist, but one of my very closest friends, and he's got quite a similar approach to me to life, which is let's try and squeeze as much as we can out of it, and let's enjoy it as best we can. And I think having people like that in your close surroundings, so people that see the world the way you see the world and have grand ambitions in the same way you have grand ambitions, makes it a lot easier for that to feel normal. And so makes everything feel a lot more achievable by virtue of that.
Beautifully said. Wow. Thank you
Thank you.
for giving us this like insight into your life and also into your mind.
No problem.
I
No
can
problem at
just
all.
like recall from that you have an amazing mindset. And thank you for sharing it with us and anyone watching, and definitely like all my clients gonna watch this.